triumphant scoring parade. His pure jump shot already has him 5th on the Terps all-time list, and the combination of power and grace has him destined for number 1. Duke's consensus All-American Johnny Dawkins is 2nd in conference scoring, and in the open court, he is unmatched. Like Bias, Dawkins is the 5th all-time scorer for a school with a proud tradition, and like Bias, destined to be number 1 before his college career ends. It's superstar against superstar as Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions presents Duke versus Maryland.
Raycom Sports and Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions present exclusive live coverage of Atlantic Coast Conference basketball. Tonight, live from Cole Fieldhouse in College Park, Maryland, the Duke Blue Devils take on the Maryland Terrapins. Tonight's game is being brought to you by Natural Light, NCNB, Piedmont Airlines, the Jefferson Pilot Companies, South Carolina National, Subaru, Food Lion, and Central Fidelity.
Another sellout for Cole Fieldhouse. 14,500 people waiting for Duke and Maryland. Good evening, everybody. Mike Patrick along with Dan Bonner, and it's great to have you with us for another Atlantic Coast Conference basketball season. Duke comes in here tonight ranked 3rd in the nation, undefeated. Dan, very similar to the situation they came in here last year, undefeated, ranked 2nd, and Maryland beat them in overtime.
Alas for consistency, Michael. The teams are different this year. Gone from the Maryland Terrapins are such stalwarts as Adrian Branch and Jeff Adkins, and in their place, some people who have yet to really prove themselves. It's an adventure for Lefty Drizel every time the Terrapins go out. Duke, on the other hand, they're deep, they're experienced, and they're accustomed to that high ranking, so I don't know that we can expect a repeat of last year, although it'll be fun to watch.
So many of these players are from the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. They really like coming here to Cole Fieldhouse to play basketball.
They sure do, Mike. 4 of the top 7 players for the Duke Blue Devils are from this area, led by freshman starter Danny Ferry, junior guard Tommy Amaker, and the leader of the pack for the Duke Blue Devils is Johnny Dawkins. He loves to play here. He's played 3 times, scored 30 points on 2 of those occasions, averages 27 points a game on this floor. Maryland's going to have their hands full.
Now, his counterpart on the Maryland side is Len Bias, who has literally been carrying the Terrapins offense on his back.
He certainly has. One of the country's best players, one of the ACC history's greatest players. Bias, if you count his points and his assists together, Lenny Bias is almost 30% of Maryland's offense. He's their leading rebounder. They have to have him playing a big game in their big game.
Now, as good as Len Bias is and as many points as he is scoring, he's got to get some help from somebody else. Somebody else has to stand up and get some points.
He surely does. The most obvious candidates would be Derek Lewis and would be Keith Gatlin. Those players have to come around. I think they've got to have big games if Maryland is going to expect to beat people like the Duke Blue Devils.
Now, we could see freshmen having a real impact on tonight's game for both ball clubs.
We sure should. John Johnson is going to start at guard for Maryland. He's a freshman. Tony Massenberg, a freshman, is the likely starter at the center position. Danny Ferry, a freshman, is Duke's leading rebounder, so they are going to have an impact in this ball game.
It should be a great ball game. Maryland against Duke. Coming up right after this word from Natural Light.
Duke's assistant coaches are Chuck Swenson, Bob Bender, Pete Gargett, and Tom Rogers.
My favorite chicken recipe is the delectable chicken Monica. This is chicken based to true art.
Hello.
Here's how we start.
Hello?
Hello, Monica. Don't hang up. I'll never do that again. How about dinner? Your place. I'll bring the beer. Natural Light, the beer with the taste for food. You know, the blue on the label matches your eyes.
Yeah, all natural, less filling. It's Natural Light from Anheuser-Busch.
And the gold on the label matches your hair.
I have a great agent. He got me this job for Piedmont Airlines. I do their commercials, and Piedmont saves me this much to over 100 cities. Special deal just for moi. It's not? Just book 30 days in advance. few other restrictions and anybody can do it. Is my agent still here? Is Rick here? Rick? Hey, Rick, where you going, guy? Hey, you little devil.
Oh, all these IRAs are the same.
Did you know you could open a Jefferson Pilot IRA?
Oh, yeah?
You get high-yield, tax-sheltered interest, and you can deduct your contributions from your taxable income.
Same with these IRAs. What's the difference?
Unlike those IRAs, this IRA can guarantee you an income for as long as you live.
You mean these don't?
Nope.
Oh, yeah?
Ask about a Jefferson Pilot IRA, the IRA with a difference.
If you think spending a ton of bucks is the only way to get into a refined road car these days, then you sure don't know about this one. Because once you get to know how special Mazda's new 626 is, you'll be asking, why did the other guys cost so much?
Mazda's new 626 Sports sedan is here with a more responsive fuel-injected engine and refined aerodynamics. Enjoy a high-performance road car without paying the price.
It all makes sense to me.
The game plan is brought to you tonight by Mazda. And Dan Bonner, what do you think the Duke Blue Devils have to do to keep that undefeated streak alive?
The Duke Blue Devils, Mike, play much better when they can get into a transition game because that frees Johnny Dawkins to do what he does best, operate in the open court. I think the Duke Blue Devils have to try to create some turnovers. They've got to rebound well against Maryland to create those transition opportunities. Another key for Duke is going to be to keep Mark Allery out of foul trouble. Allery's been very consistent for Duke. I don't think they can afford to have him on the bench in foul trouble, so they're going to have to come up with some way to protect him.
And how about for the University of Maryland? They're obviously in a situation where they're trying to pull the upset on a team that's heavily favored coming in here.
They certainly are, and one of the ways that they can do it is to go to their strength, which is Lenny Bias inside. Also, they've got to be able to get the ball inside to Derek Lewis. That combines a couple of things. It gets them close in shot. It puts some pressure on Duke's big guys. Maryland's got to protect the ball very carefully. For every turnover, they're going to create a transition opportunity for Duke. So Gatlin, Johnson, Baxter, who's ever playing guard, has a big responsibility. Maryland is going to have to do a better job on the boards than they've done in recent games.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome.
That's the Mazda game plan, and we'll check back at halftime to see how those points have affected the first half. And we'll be back with more right after this.
Chancellor John D. Slaughter and Director of Athletics Richard M. Dahl, thank you for coming to our game. Between our guests from Durham, North Carolina, their record 11-0, they rank third in the nation. The Blue Devils of Duke University.
Your Jefferson Standard agent is worried about you. He worries whether your current retirement plan will buy the kind of retirement you want, whether you'll be able to send the kids to school. If you become ill or disabled, will you have the right coverage to see you through recovery? Maybe you're not worrying about these things, but isn't it nice to know that somebody is?
Bill, it's all worked out.
Well, I've got nothing to worry about then.
Jefferson Standard. Our business is your future.
10 years ago, it rained. 10 years ago, there were signs like these and roads like this. Yet 10 years ago, only one car maker was committed to handling these conditions. Subaru, with on-demand four-wheel drive, a feature we offer on every model. Now, other car makers are discovering four-wheel drive. Did they finally notice the weather or us?
Test drive a new 1986 Subaru at your local dealer today.
Everything's changed in America. And at NCNB, we've changed almost everything in banking. New ways to borrow, new ways to invest, new ways to use your money. But one thing hasn't changed. We still work to be the best bank in the neighborhood.
Let's take a look at the matchups for tonight's game, and I think the big thing you'll see in the middle is with Tony Massenberg starting at center for the University of Maryland. Really, neither of these teams playing with a true center.
You can see there from the matchups that Maryland's starting two freshmen, Duke one. Maryland is really in a bind if they can't get a big effort from Massenberg, so his play is going to be very important for the Terps.
And, of course, the backcourts to watch, Dawkins and Amaker, one of the best backcourts in the country. Keith Gatlin, who I don't think gets as much credit as he deserves as a point guard, and John Johnson, who could be the key to this ball game in the backcourt for Maryland.
I think another key to the game, Mike, is going to be whether Johnson and Gatlin can keep up with Dawkins and Amaker. Dawkins and Amaker do have an edge in quickness.
Be interesting to see the individual defensive matchups once they take the court, too. Here are your officials tonight. That is Lenny Wirtz in the middle, along with Tom Frame and Paul Hausman. And they will control this third game of a triple-header, first big Saturday of action on the ACC Basketball Network. We are having a few technical problems. It is very difficult for Dan Bonner and I to hear each other. So sometimes if it sounds like we're not really on the same, whatever you'd call it, that's because we're not.
It's always good to get us covered like that early, Mike.
That's right. Don't worry, we'll probably mention it a couple of times. Really impossible to hear in here normally, and tonight it is truly impossible. You've got Ferry in the middle in blue for Duke to jump against Lenny Bias, and we're set to go. First conference game of the year for the Terps. Duke has already won one. The tip controlled by Ferry, but picked off by Gatlin from Maryland. Gatlin, number 3, John Johnson, number 21, Mr. Basketball in the state of Tennessee a year ago.
Duke starts out in that man-to-man defense, and right away Maryland goes to Lenny Bias. What a great backdoor cut. Ferry tried to come over and help out, but was too late. Great pass inside and a great cut by Len Bias.
And the Maryland fans are saying, welcome back to College Park for Danny Ferry. A great pass by Gatlin, and Bias with a big jam.
Lenny Bias got behind David Henderson. Ferry came over to help out. Ferry is not the kind of jumper that Len Bias is.
Well, you say that about 95% of the guys in this game. And Lenny Bias starts a three-point play and puts Maryland on top 3-0. Bias, the number 1 scorer in the conference, averaging 22.7. This is Amaker guarded by Gatlin. That means that Dawkins will start against Johnson. And Allery misses his first shot. Bias with a rebound, and the foul will go against Henderson, I believe.
The foul will be against David Henderson, but in the first couple of seconds here of this ball game, in the first 30 seconds of the game, we've been able to see how valuable Lenny Bias is to the Maryland Terrapins. Allery gets open for a jumper, but Bias just swoops in from nowhere. Henderson fouls him on the way down.
Bias third in the conference in rebounding, leads his team 6.6 boards a game. That is Derek Lewis helping out on the press to John Johnson, who tries to penetrate. There's another jam, and the Terps are really on fire. That's Tony Massenberg, the 6'8 freshman, with his first 2.
Uncharacteristically, Duke went to a trap that time. Maryland recognized very well.
Amaker calls out a play. It's Maryland 5 and Duke nothing. 1 minute gone in the first half. And they got Ferry, or make it Allery, loose underneath, and Duke finally gets on the board. Maryland handles that pressure defense very well. Gatlin can play point guard for just about anybody. Looking for a shot against Amaker, goes low to Bias, a turnaround, got it! Lenny Bias with 5, and it's a 5-point lead.
Bias has a height advantage when matched up against David Henderson inside. That's a matchup that Mike Krzyzewski knew going in was going to be a tough matchup, and so far Bias has gotten the most of it.
Henderson can't get it in low. Lewis with the interception, and here comes Gatlin for Lefty Drizel's Maryland Terrapins. Gatlin misses his first shot, and Henderson with the outlet pass to Dawkins, and Dawkins kicked the ball out of bounds. I was just going to say that's when Johnny Dawkins is at his best, maybe the best player in the country in an open court. I'm glad I didn't say it just before he committed the turnover.
I think that Maryland actually got a break on the play. Dawkins was running by Keith Gatlin. Gatlin was very fortunate to flick his hand in there and knock the ball away.
2 minutes into the game, it's 7-2 Maryland. That's Derek Lewis. Neither team really playing with the center, each with 3 forwards. Johnson had to pick up his dribble, and the jumper is good by Bias. Len Bias told me before the game that he has not really played well yet. A lot of people wouldn't believe it, but he said he's going to be great tonight. Amaker gets it to Henderson off the almost steal, and Henderson parries the jump shot. The 6th starter all of his career. He is now a true starter for Mike Krzyzewski.
That changes the character of the Duke team a little bit, getting Mark Allery inside, but Allery's very effective in there.
Gatlin, excellent penetration down the lane and hits the pull-up jumper. 11-4 Maryland.
Maryland has come out of the blocks very quickly, Mike. They're playing with the kind of intensity that Duke normally displays.
Henderson trying to make an offensive move, cut off at the baseline. This is Danny Ferry's sensational freshman to Dawkins, the equally sensational senior. Amaker pulls up against Gatlin. Gatlin took it away from him. And then it comes out, and Ferry picks it up. Ferry trying toward the hoop behind the back, and Allery finished it off. Hello.
How about that? A 6'10 guy takes the ball, dribbles hard to the basket, throws it behind his back.
He learned that from his dad, Bob, the general manager of the Bullets. I wonder how many behind-the-back passes Bob Ferry threw. And we got a traveling violation against Lenny Bias. Tried to make a move at the baseline, a little shuffle step.
Bias does such a great job moving without the ball, Mike. Duke is applying pretty good pressure, but Bias just continues going through. You got to wonder how much longer he can keep it up without becoming exhausted.
The Terps have hit 5 of their 6 field goals here in the opening 3.5 minutes and lead 11-6. Dawkins goes by Johnson like a bullet and lays it in. John Johnson getting a baptism here.
Looked like Johnson was nailed to the floor, Mike. Dawkins has such an explosive first step.
Lewis beating the pressure ahead to Gatlin. Air ball by Gatlin. Highly unusual. He's an excellent shooter, and here comes Dawkins. Got by Johnson. I think the basket will be disallowed, as Johnson, or the foul rather, committed before he took the shot.
Well, they've called that an intentional foul, Mike. They're giving him 2 shots in the basket. Here you get a chance to look at it. That's what they called right there. Johnson, the referee ruled, grabbed to Dawkins, so they're going to count that basket, and now they're going to get 2 shots.
Now the officials are huddling near Lefty Drizel, and you better believe Charles Bryce Drizel is keeping an eye on this one, and he is really upset.
He is really mad.
And I think rightfully so. I don't believe that rule was intended to do this.
I agree with you, Mike. There was very little contact there. I think Johnson was trying to get in position, realized at the last minute that he could not, thought better of it.
Now, we have seen this on an occasion before where it was not a foul that would harm a player. You're not undercutting someone or trying to stop a breakaway. And they ruled it that way before, so at least they're being consistent about it. I just think if that's the way they're going to call it, it's a bad rule for everybody.
I think that was much too close a call, Mike. I agree with you.
Dawkins gets 2 shots, so this could be a 4-point play. It's 11-11, and Lefty Drizel, you can light a match on his forehead. You can light a forest fire.
Can usually light a match there, Mike. Here's Duke showing some full court pressure. It looks like they're actually trying to trap if they get an opportunity.
Lewis working against Allery, man-to-man, and now Amaker comes over. Once again, we're having audio problems, so we hope you can hear us. We cannot hear what's going on over the air or each other. Bias comes outside with a dangerous pass to Johnson, and Johnson has it tipped away by Allery, and here come the Blue Devils on the break. Allery carried the ball in the lane, and is called for traveling. A late whistle, and Lefty Drizel was about 3 feet off the ground by the time they blew it. 15:35 to go first half. We'll be back after this word from Natural Light.
You need Italian tomatoes, Mexican beans, and my Ma in the kitchen. How's it going, Ma? How's your kitchen? She's great. Knows just how hot I like it, and it's all cold when I like with it. Natural Light, the beer with the taste for food. Ah, this is the life. Yeah, the table.
Yeah, all natural, less filling. It's Natural Light from Anheuser-Busch.
Put a coaster under the beer.
You're reaching deep inside you, oh, things you've never known. It's been tough, rough going, but you haven't gone alone.
We do more before 9 a.m. than most people do all day.
Hey, First Sergeant. Good morning.
Find your future in the Army.
Wolfpack, Tigers, Tar Heels, Cavaliers, Blue Devils, Deacons, Yellow Jackets, Terrapins. If you know the ACC, then you know who I'm talking about. Words like these describe the spirit of the teams. If you know grocery shopping, you know that extra low prices means Food Line. Extra also describes the spirit of friendliness of the Food Line team. Visit one of our stores soon and get in on the savings team.
Hey, Tom, catch.
Lefty Drizel, who earlier in the season was quoted as saying he would like to be known every once in a while as coach or Charles Grace and not Lefty. He thought at his age, Lefty might be not quite right all the time. And there is Mike Krzyzewski, who would just like to be called Mike Krzyzewski and would like to get people to pronounce his last name correctly. And it's a good thing he's a basketball coach, or they might never get it. Duke leading by a point. Lewis to Baxter, who checks into the ball game for the first time.
Now, Duke has made a defensive change, Mike. They've got Mark Allery matched up against Lenny Bias, and they said they were going to change throughout the game.
Lewis with a jump hook over Henderson.
Great recognition by Maryland. They realized that Lewis had a mismatch inside because he is taller than Henderson, and he was able to score the bucket.
13-12, Maryland by 1. Henderson, great offensive performer against Speedy Jones, and he got the bucket. Jones, the senior transfer student out of Oak Hill, West Virginia, in there for the first time. So Lefty goes to his bench quite a bit. And this year, he's got some talented freshmen, and he's been bringing some veterans off the bench, which he would rather do than bringing freshmen in. Jones escapes the steal. John Johnson got the roll. A soft touch of the shooter. And Maryland is back on top by 1.
If Duke is going to double team, Mike, they've got to do a better job than they've done so far. That time it was not a good double team. Maryland actually had a 4-on-1.
Johnson last week's ACC Rookie of the Week. Hit the winning bucket over Stanford. Henderson line drive shot, and Baxter with a rebound. The senior point guard out of Washington, D.C. brings it up with Maryland ahead by 1.
We haven't really seen the kind of pressure defense that Duke can apply, Mike.
Baxter, always a good ball handler. Would like to get some more playing time this year. Had to pick up his dribble, worrying about the 5-second count. He threw it away. Drapes couldn't handle it.
Great play by Ferry. Ferry just stepped in front of the pass and picked it off.
Ferry played at one of those storied places of high school basketball, DeMatha, and you learn how to play the game early at that institution. Move to the basket, draws a foul on Bias, and Danny Ferry knew what to do when he got it down low.
What you just said about where Ferry played in high school, Mike, is so true. He shows great technique inside. Really did a nice job pinning Derek Lewis on his back. A nice, strong move to the basket.
Bias picks up his first personal foul.
Mike Krzyzewski said something before the game about Danny Ferry that I found rather interesting. He said that Ferry isn't a player who has to score, he just has to touch the ball. And that as the season goes on and the other players on Duke's team get used to him, that his passes won't be quite such a surprise. And that's really a compliment that a freshman passes the ball well enough that the seniors and juniors have to get used to it.
Ferry is 61% free throw shooter on the year, hits 1 of 2. Jay Billis checks in for the first time. He missed the first 6 games of the year with tendonitis in his knees, and it's been a problem for him throughout his college career. Had off-season surgery, just rounding back into shape. We're tied at 15 with 13:30 to go first half. Mike Patrick and Dan Bonner, glad you could join us for ACC basketball from College Park. Johnson out of control, goes into the stands, and Dawkins to Amaker playing touch. And Dawkins did not get the roll on the layup, ball tipped out of bounds, and it's out to Duke. And Lefty Drizel is up with another stomp for the Terrapins.
Lefty is really getting some exercise over there tonight, Mike. He's really working the officials hard. That last sequence was keyed totally by Johnny Dawkins' quickness. He was just too quick for Johnson, took the ball away from him on the one end, and although Dawkins missed the layup on the other end, that's the kind of transition play Duke needs.
Allery, they want him to play more inside this year the way he did as a sophomore. Amaker misses the shot, and it's lost out of bounds, but Lewis was not the last man to touch it. Lefty Drizel said yesterday, in the next 10 days, the Terps play Duke, Georgia Tech, and North Carolina, 3 of the top 6 teams in the country. Said, you know what? If we beat them, we should be #1 in 10 days.
That's one of the things.
Go along with it.
I would agree with him, too, and that's one of the things that makes Lefty such a great coach and a great personality. He thinks things like that and believes them.
And he says them. Most people wouldn't do it. Gatlin looked the wrong way, got up to the ball and stepped on the end line. So Maryland a little sloppy last 2 or 3 possessions.
Well, Maryland may be a little sloppy, Mike, but I think that the key is the quickness of Dawkins and Amaker has really given some problems to the Maryland guard.
Still tied at 15 with 12:33 and counting. First half of play from College Park. Allery, good perimeter jump shot. This one halfway down and spun back out. Lewis with the rebound.
Lewis doing a nice job on the boards for Maryland.
Got Baxter and Gatlin, essentially 2 point guards, both of whom can shoot in the ballgame. Somebody's got to come to Baxter. Almost had a 5-second count.
It's really tough to get in sync on offense when you're just trying to pass the ball so desperately all the time.
Billy King in the ballgame for the first time. He's number 55, but Len Bias got it low. Double teamed or not, he still scored. Lenny Bias has 9 and Maryland 17.
And what a worker Lenny Bias is. Duke applied tremendous pressure that time, but Bias just worked till he got open.
Amaker down the lane, bumped by Gatlin, and Gatlin will pick up the personal foul.
Lenny Bias probably works as hard as anybody in the country without the basketball. Bias trying to get open. You can see he tries the outside. There's Mark Allery coming out with pretty good defense, but it's just hard to pick a guy up as Duke tries to switch in the lane. But watch Bias, just back and forth, back and forth. Not too many guys will work that hard to get the basketball.
And he'll do it the entire game. 11:48 to go first half. Maryland by 2 over Duke. We'll be back with more from College Park after this.
Be in the middle of the ACC tournament this year. Holly Farms has reserved 4 seats for you. Win the Holly Farms ACC sweepstakes and enjoy free transportation to and from Greensboro, luxury accommodations at the Holiday Inn 4 Seasons, fine dining, plus a chauffeured limousine. Look for details on entry blanks available only at Holly Farms displays. Featuring Time Trimmer boneless fresh chicken and Holly Farms Sunday Best Roaster. Don't miss the excitement. Enter today.
Last year, car makers spent over $1 billion in advertising just to tell you how wonderful their cars are. Fortunately, there is a more objective opinion, car owners. According to a recent survey of all the cars in America, import or domestic, now, for the second year in a row, car owners rated Subaru second only to Mercedes-Benz in customer satisfaction. And that's the kind of advertising money can't buy.
Test drive a new 1986 Subaru at your local dealer today.
Introducing an incredible advance in Gillette shaving smoothness. New Atra Plus. The Plus is this unique white strip that releases lubricants as you shave. You never felt anything smoother. New Atra Plus by Gillette. The essence of shaving.
11:48 to go first half. Duke hitting 6 of 11 in the first half. Maryland hitting 8 of 10. Len Bias really doing a great job, as always, on the offensive end of the floor for the Terps. Ferry. Swish.
Mike, Maryland on out-of-bounds plays zone, and both times now that they've had an underneath out-of-bounds play like that, I thought they were a little lackadaisical in the zone defense. That was a very easy shot for Danny Ferry.
17-17. And Gatlin almost threw it away. Baxter picks up the loose ball. Maryland will reset its offense. Baxter moving on Henderson. There's a foul away from the ball. And it's going to go against Maryland. I think it's Speedy Jones inside.
Got called for an illegal screen inside.
That was number 41 for the Terrapins, Speedy Jones, his first.
That's his first, and the 4th team foul against the Terps. This is Billy King, number 55. He's from Sterling, Virginia. Maryland wanted him badly, and he wanted Albert King's number, 55, and he's got it, but it's blue, and it's at Duke.
Well, now Len Bias is sitting on the bench for the Maryland Terrapins. David Dickerson, number 24, is in.
Jump shot by Billis is short. Henderson skies a rebound, and they'll bring it back out to Dawkins. Henderson from long range this time and buried it.
Nobody blocked David Henderson out the first time, and he is really a great offensive player.
6 points for Henderson. Dickerson, number 24, is a freshman from Olar, South Carolina.
Duke continues in the man-to-man defense.
Jones down the lane on a power move. Shot won't go. Rebound to Lewis, but then stolen by Henderson. Baxter, good defense, got in his way, but Henderson just waited for Baxter to go down and hit it.
When it works, it works, Mike. That was not actually a very smart move by David Henderson. He was 1-on-4.
21-17. Duke with a 4-point lead. Baxter being guarded by Henderson.
King and Dickerson really going after one another inside.
Baxter with a long-range jumper way off, and Henderson with another long rebound out to Dawkins. Here come the Blue Devils on the break, and Gatlin cuts off Dawkins. Nice play. Henderson again leans into Baxter. Dawkins from the baseline and got it. Now, if Johnny Dawkins makes the long-range jumper, you might as well hang it up because you go out to cover him, and he'll blow by you like you're standing still. And Lefty Driesell wants to talk about this as his team has dropped behind by 6, 23-17, with 9 minutes and 35 seconds to go in the first half.
Basketball camp are available in the front lobby. Also available in the lobby near the swimming pool at halftime.
Yes, as a frequent flyer, you do earn bonus points on this trip. Yes, I can reserve that seat for your round trip. It's our flight 46.
You're watching one of America's major airlines at work. Over the last 6 years, they've taken delivery on more than 90 jets. They've added over 7,000 employees, and they've helped make reservations for nearly 75 million people. They're America's newest major airline with a very familiar face.
Piedmont Airlines, may I help you?
For the past few years, Congress has been deregulating the financial business. Now, all kinds of companies can offer all kinds of accounts and services, which has caused quite a stir. And if you're not sure how your banker, broker, or S&L is going to turn out, there's one place that sees all this as simply an opportunity to develop new and better services for you. NCNB, still working to be the best bank in the neighborhood.
Remember, stay tuned at the end of the game. We'll be picking a Holly Farms player of the game from each school.
Mike, up to this point in the game, the Duke Blue Devils are in that transition game. They had a little bit of a slow start, but they've rebounded very well. They've created some turnovers, and they've been able to get Johnny Dawkins and Tommy Amaker and David Henderson isolated in one-on-one situations. Maryland, they've shot the ball very well, but we said one thing they couldn't do was turn it over, and they've already turned it over 7 times.
You can't shoot it if you don't have it. And this is John Johnson. His bias is back into the ballgame. Johnson picked up his dribble. Ferry going after the steal. Great play by Ferry. And then Speedy Jones tips it ahead to Bias. Good hustle by Jones to get back.
We talked about Danny Ferry's intelligence on the court. That time he made a mistake. He tried to dribble the ball before he actually picked it up.
Jones working outside, gets it to Gatlin, swings it to Bias. Ferry on him. They alternate players on him. Got him to throw up an air ball. Loose on the floor. Ferry goes down after it. We'll have a jump ball situation, and the possession arrow will give it to Duke this time around.
Mike, the fans at home can take a look and watch how far the Duke defense pushes the Maryland offense from the basket. That's a pretty good move by Len Bias, except he started at about 4 or 5 feet further away from the basket than he normally would. He's got to take, say, 3 dribbles instead of 2, and by that time, Amaker, Dawkins, Henderson can drop down to help out and force that kind of a shot. Great defense by Duke.
If Danny Ferry can stay with him in the quickness department, he has a 2-inch height advantage on him. Of course, it will not stop Len Bias from shooting because he can go up over most people. Phillips short on his jumper. Bias got a hand on it to King the rebound.
Duke has really won the battle of the boards up to this point, Mike, and Maryland had to at least stay even there.
This is Henderson. He's been hot in the first half and continues that way. Interesting point right now. We talked to Mike Krzyzewski before the game. Johnny Dawkins is on the bench. In the past, Krzyzewski has not had the luxury of resting Johnny Dawkins or Amaker or Allery.
But he's got that.
It off.
He's got that luxury this year. Bias misses a close one. Again, the Blue Devils play good defense. But this is a much deeper Duke team than Mike Krzyzewski has ever had.
Henderson being guarded by John Johnson. Amaker with Gatlin all over him, but buried the shot anyhow. And it's 27-17, Duke with its biggest lead, and Maryland has not gotten a good shot lately.
What a great quick move by Tommy Amaker.
Gatlin looking low, has to come outside to Lewis. He's double-teamed. This is swarming defensive Duke.
The Maryland players are picking up the ball, Mike, and then they're turning their backs to the basket. You have to make the Duke players guard you even after you pick up your dribble. Duke has the luxury of just ignoring.
Bias got away from Ferry. Shot won't go. Tip won't go. And Billis with a rebound. Out to Amaker. Duke able to run all at once right now. Bias with a rebound at the other end. He's complaining to the official that he had Danny Ferry on his back.
Danny Ferry has really been banging with Len Bias, and as you say, he was letting Paul Hausman know about it.
And he just ran into Ferry again, and I think the warning on this end, or at least the pleading of his case by Len Bias, picked up a cheap foul from Danny Ferry on this end.
Bias pleading with one judge, but the other judge, Lenny Wirtz, got him. Called that a foul. That's sort of a funny call.
No foul on either one of them, I don't think, but probably a situation right now the officials would like to prevent things from getting a little
nasty. I think that's absolutely true. Bias was complaining down on the one end, and then you have a situation like that. If the official calls it, then you get the game a little bit more under control.
27-17 with 7 minutes and 7 seconds to go in the first half. Hope you had a chance to see the first couple of games on our triple-header telecast. North Carolina State gave North Carolina all they could handle and more, and Georgia Tech needed something of a miracle comeback to win at Virginia, the first time they have ever won a game at University Hall. Bias, great move to the bucket. The basket will not count. There was a whistle before, and the foul is going to go on Weldon Williams, who's in for the first time, and the crowd wanted that intentional two-shot foul again.
Len Bias moving without the ball. That time he showed you a good quick first step getting around Weldon Williams, and Weldon Williams guarding him, Mike, is significant. That's another player off the Duke bench. You really have to wonder how long Lenny Bias can keep going full speed with the Blue Devils continually rotating fresh players off on him.
Bias has 9 points. The rest of the Maryland team has 8. Now John Johnson makes it 10 for the rest of the Maryland offensive unit. It's 27-19.
That's the first Duke, or the first Maryland score in quite some time, Mike.
Dawkins, long range, won't go, kept alive, and that's Strickland coming down with it. Duke has gotten a lot of long rebounds.
They've gotten a lot of funny-looking non-walk calls, too, Mike.
Amaker looks inside. Now this is Strickland. Dawkins cutting through the lane, wants the ball and got it, and draws the foul from Lewis. Now, Dawkins went down in the lane, called for the ball, and when Johnny Dawkins calls for it, you give it to him.
Johnny Dawkins can kill you in the transition. He can kill you inside. Johnson just loses him in there. Good pass inside, good strength to catch the basketball. Derek Lewis got him with the foul. Let's get a chance to look at it here. Lewis comes down on him hard, and I was real surprised to see Lenny Wirtz rush into that situation and separate the players. The game must be more physical out there than it looks to me here, because I just didn't think it was that close to being out of control.
Dawkins with 9 points. He is 3 for 3 from the free throw line. Comes in as the third leading free throw shooter in the ACC, almost 84%. He's 4 for 4 from the line tonight and brings Duke's lead back to 10 points at 29-19.
Duke was down 17-15, and now they're up 29-19, and they've done it with their defense.
John Johnson being guarded by Dawkins.
Look how far away from the basket Maryland is trying to start the offense.
Tom Speedy Jones. Here's a whistle and a foul away from the ball again, and this one may be on Allery.
No, it's on Weldon Williams guarding Len Bias again, and those are actually throwaway fouls. Weldon Williams is not that key a cog in the Duke lineup. He can go in and bang on Len Bias, as you see him doing right here, and if he gets 3 or 4 fouls, well, that's okay, because he's actually spelling somebody on the Duke bench.
Bias guarded by Williams. Johnson leans into one. Tough shot. Lewis with a rebound, had it stripped as he went up. Dawkins, and here's a whistle, and we got a traveling violation just as he got the ball. And Krzyzewski is up for the Blue Devils, and Coach Mike didn't like this one.
Notice Coach Krzyzewski is trying to stay within the coach's box there. Got his toes right on the line. We want to take a look at the Maryland offense as it comes down the court here. Watch where Duke is forcing the Terrapins to set up. Maryland has to make 3 or 4 passes just to get into any kind of offensive position.
Johnson looking for Bias and finds it. Being guarded by Weldon Williams. Shot clock is at 25 seconds.
And
Maryland is not
hasn't-
within 15 feet of the
They
bucket.
haven't been anywhere close to getting an opportunity.
Speedy Jones with an off-balance shot. It won't go. Johnson tried to keep it alive, but here comes Amaker again on the break. To Dawkins. Blocked! Speedy Jones with a great defensive play. And here comes Gatlin. His pass intercepted as Massenberg was on the receiving end of a ball that never got there.
Maryland can't afford that. When they get an opportunity, they've got to go down and convert it. That was just too tough a pass.
Gatlin tried for a real tough pass. It would have been a beauty if it worked, but it didn't.
Great block by Speedy Jones on the last break.
Dawkins to Allery. That's his range.
What a great jump shooter he is. He squared up perfectly, got himself turned to the basket, and just buried it.
We're inside the 5-minute mark, and Maryland is stuck on 19. Down by a dozen. Gatlin gets it to Bias, working on Williams, got by him. Oh, what a great move, and drew the foul from Strickland. Here's another luxury Mike Krzyzewski has. With being able to go to his bench, he can give fouls like that.
He sure can. This is Strickland, who is a player off the bench for Duke, coming back very hard to help out against Len Bias. Nice move by Bias to get around Williams, but again, every time Bias gets to the basket, as you get a look at Coach Lefty Drizel, he's got people coming to him. Weldon Williams with 2 fouls, now Strickland with 1. Those are just throwaway fouls. Just they're leaning on Lenny Bias.
Bias hit his first free throw tonight. He is 5th in the conference in free throw percentage at 82.9. Ranks up there in just about everything.
And Bias has been to the free throw line like 82 times coming into this game, and that's a very large number of times to be to the line in 11 games.
One of those rare players that has a pure jump shot from 17 feet and can also go very strong to the bucket. 31-21, the margin back to 10 with 4:37 to go in the half. Dawkins, Ferry, they're looking for Billis low. Instead, they get it to Allery in the lane. Missed the shot. Pretty good defense in there by Massenberg, the freshman center.
Looked like Maryland was trying to employ a little bit of a triangle and 2, a trick defense. Duke didn't pass the ball very many times, made it easy for Maryland.
Bias working on Allery. Shot won't go. Jones kept it alive, and Massenberg gets the layup. 4 points for Massenberg, and it's down to 8 at 31-23.
Looked like Jay Billis just didn't time his jump very well. The ball came off quickly, and he was surprised. Jones just towered above him with that jump.
Very smart ball player. National Prep Player of the Year last year. Forced that shot. It won't go. Tipped outside, but Dawkins has it, and Dawkins called for the offensive foul. And Baxter, who's been trying to get one ever since he came in the ballgame, finally picks one up.
Maryland showing you some scrap on the inside. Dawkins turns very clearly into Jeff Baxter.
Timeout.
There's another timeout with 3:47 to go from College Park. It's Duke over Maryland, 31-23.
Report right now to the middle end of the court.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
A baseball player. A movie star.
At Pilot Life, we know how important dreams are.
An astronaut.
After all, we've been insuring them for over 80 years.
A teacher.
With affordable life insurance policies that can guarantee your children's dreams.
A doctor.
Where are you going to get the money to be a doctor?
My daddy.
At Pilot Life, we believe nothing should happen to your children's dreams if something should happen to you. You see, we never forget that behind every policy is a person.
Listen, yeah, Doc, I think she's ready.
Okay, I'll be right over.
In Markesan, Wisconsin, when a patient can't get to Dr. Lippert's office, Dr. Lippert brings his office to his patients.
Daddy, where is he?
And the office he relies on, a Subaru wagon. So happily on this night, Dr. Lippert delivered a healthy 72-pound cat.
Test drive a new 1986 Subaru at your local dealer today. Tonight's exclusive coverage is a presentation of Raycom Sports and Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions.
We hope you'll stay with us for halftime. We'll review the Mazda game plan and see how those key points are working out. We'll have the Budweiser scoreboard and keep you up to date on everything that's happened in the ACC today. We'll take a look at Duke, and we'll talk about what we're doing right now, television. (31-23), Duke leading Maryland by 8 with 3:47 to go. The Terps have the basketball. Baxter and Johnson are the guards for Maryland. Bias is in there. At one forward, Massenberg the center, and Speedy Jones, who's a swingman, is playing the other front line spot. Baxter got by Dawkins. Nice quick move, but cut off. Johnson, nice fake, had Allery bang into him. Good play by John Johnson. Got Allery in the air.
Looked like a move you see in the NBA, Mike. John Johnson just gave Mark Allery that pump fake. Not a very good move by Allery to try to go after a blocked shot at that point on the floor. But Johnson, as soon as Allery got off his feet, you get a look here. He's like 17, 18 feet away from the basket. Just not a very smart play by Mark Allery to foul him, but a great move by Johnson.
Tommy Amaker will come back in, and Billis will come out as Mike Krzyzewski goes with a smaller lineup.
He's back now with the lineup that started the game.
Johnson is 75% free throw shooter. Hit 16 points against Hawaii over in the tournament that Maryland won over there. He also hit the game winner in overtime against Stanford. Kind of a thing that gives a freshman a real boost. He has 4 points tonight.
He's really come on for Lefty Drizel's Maryland Terrapins, and it's important that he continue to develop.
Hello. Out of Knoxville, Tennessee, player of the year in that state. 31-24 to margin of 7.
Last couple series, Mike, have been real key for Maryland. They were to the point of getting blown out. They were down by 12, and Duke had all the momentum, and now they've, although Henderson hit that basket, and Duke's up 9 again. Maryland, I think, staved off a blowout there with their effort.
Johnson just tossed one up. It was a 1-on-4 fast break. An ill-advised shot by the freshman that time. Henderson double team. When he's hot, you can forget it. You put all 5 guys on him, it's still going to go in. Henderson has 14 points of Duke's 35.
It's another key spot for Maryland. They've got to make sure they get a good shot at the basket.
And here's just a man that can do it, Len Bias. Back out to Baxter. Henderson is the MVP of the Big Apple NIT tournament at the start of the year. Had 46 points against St. John's and Kansas. Johnson in the lane against Allery and got the bucket. That's 7 for Johnson, and a nice move.
Johnson's been the featured performer the last 3 trips down the court for Maryland, and that time he converted.
35-26, the margin cut back to 9 with 2 minutes and 18 seconds to go in the half. Allery from long range, a little strong, tip. It's Danny Ferry with 2 cracks at it, won't go, no whistle. A lot of contact, and Ferry just shoved Tony Massenberg out of the way, and none of the officials caught it.
Well, Ferry was tipping the basketball, Mike, on that sequence, and Ferry was tipping Massenberg in the Massenberg was tipping Ferry in the face, and I think Danny was a little upset that there wasn't a foul call.
There have been more than 1 elbow toss so far in this game. Johnson goes baseline. Nice move. John Johnson.
He's taken over the game for Maryland. That time he drove right at Lenny Bias. It seemed everyone was waiting for him to throw the ball to Bias, but Bias stepped aside. Johnson laid it in.
And now the crowd here at Cole will come to its feet. 35-28, Maryland's cut it to 7 with a minute and a half to go in the half.
Maryland's back in the man-to-man.
Here's more contact underneath, and this foul will go against Allery.
Mark Allery, Lenny Bias anticipated his move through the lane and showed pretty good defensive skills getting over and cutting him off.
That's 2 on Allery.
10 seconds. Returning to the blue.
Bias is going to get a chance to go to the line to cut the Duke lead to 5.
55, Billy King.
Bias leading the conference in scoring, 22.7 points a game. 3 out of 3 in the free throw department tonight, 11 points. You mentioned earlier, Dan, that he works so hard. He and Mark Price are a lot alike. They just work and work. And near the end of the game, you start wondering when they're going to collapse, because you can't possibly go full tilt that long, but they seem to do it.
They sure do, and they seem to get stronger toward the end of the game, too. Everybody else is tired.
And when it comes down to the last few seconds, they want the basketball. 35-29, Maryland creeping back now, 35-30, with 1:23 to go, and the crowd trying to get back in it.
We talked about freshmen playing key roles. John Johnson played a key role for the Terrapins, bringing them back in the game.
Dawkins, air ball off of Baxter's defense. Here's the follow by Allery. Good hustle in the lane by Mark Allery.
It's a tough break for the Terrapins, Mike. They had a good defensive series, but just couldn't come up with the loose ball.
8 for Mark Allery, a minute to go.
Now you see a zone defense from the Duke Blue Devils. I think they're trying to protect Mark Allery. He just picked up his 2nd foul.
Speedy Jones. Baxter trying to penetrate, had to pick up his dribble. Shot clock's at 20 seconds.
Gives Maryland something different to look at. They've been attacking that scrappy man-to-man the whole game.
What, Johnson just can't quit with that first step. Boy, he explodes.
Does he look intimidated by his first ACC game?
Not with 11 points in the first half, he doesn't. Duke will play for one shot. The shot clock off here with 24 seconds left, and the margin is down to 5. Amaker. And Johnson made a freshman mistake. He commits a personal foul. Reached behind Amaker. That's an automatic. The official's going to call out whether you touch him or not.
All the time. That just looks like a foul. Johnson, he's got good position here on Amaker, but he allows Amaker to go by and then swats at the ball. Maybe he's a little tired. As you say, that's the kind of mistakes freshmen make. It's the kind of thing that would cause that man to lose his hair if he had any.
But it was only the 6th team foul. The next one will put them in a bonus situation. Allery had the shot partially blocked. A whistle and a foul. Oh, Massenberg went right after him.
Massenberg was caught in a bind underneath. Maryland went for the steal on the out-of-bounds play, and Allery was wide open. There's a double team. Nice blind pass by Billy King. Massenberg has to come over, and he's got to decide whether he's going to let Allery have it or go after it, and he very nearly got a good block.
Allery will go to the line for the first time. 8 points tonight for Mark. Last year, a second-team All-ACC performer. The year before that, he was first team. Hits the free throw. Play more inside this year.
And the interesting thing to note, Mike, the year that he was first team, he was playing inside.
That's right.
So him being on the inside for the Duke Blue Devils actually makes them probably a stronger team.
Hits them both with 17 seconds to go. Henderson will come in. Allery will go out, so he won't pick up that third cheap foul in the last 17 seconds of the half.
Ferry has 2 and Allery has 2. Those are the starters that are in any sort of trouble, and they're both on the bench for the last 15 seconds.
Maryland will play for the last shot, down by 7. Initiate their offense around 8. Here's Johnson to Baxter from a mile, and got it. How's that for a little range for Jeff Baxter? He buries a 22-footer, and Maryland, after being on the verge of a blowout in the first half, comes back to trail by only 5 at the end of the first half. I think the surprise would have to be the performance of John Johnson, the freshman
I think
guard.
so, Mike. If Lefty Drizel had any question about the character of his young team, they should have been answered in the first half. Maryland was at the point twice where Duke once had an 11-point lead, once had a 12-point lead. Looked like they were going to blow them out, but Maryland, led by Johnson, came back well.
39-34. Duke got its usual expected fine performance out of its big scorers, and Maryland got a fine performance out of its expected big scorer, Lenny Bias. Coming up at halftime, we'll have the Mazda game plan, review the points that Dan Bonner talked about before the telecast. We'll take a look at Duke. We'll run down all the scores, and we'll talk to Rudy Martzke of USA Today about television.
And now for your
We'll be back with our halftime show from Cole Fieldhouse right after this.
When my big guy wanted something special, I said, sweetheart, I've got just the recipe. Shrimp, scallops, 3 pastas. Enough garlic, honey?
Perfect.
And, of course, our favorite beer, Natural Light. The beer with the taste for food. Another natural, sweetheart. Waiter!
Yeah, all natural, less filling. It's Natural Light from Anheuser-Busch.
Now me, darling. What's a smart woman make for dinner? Reservations. Where are we going tomorrow night, honey?
At Piedmont, every one of our jets gets a regular checkup. We take it apart, go over it inch by inch, check out hundreds of thousands of rivets, and examine every one of its over 92,000 parts, inside and out. Piedmont's physical fitness program. Over 900 people who never get off the ground help keep us the up-and-coming airline.
You dip 'em and you do 'em and you dip 'em and you do 'em.
Dinah, we're supposed to do a commercial for Holly Farms Thin and Fancy Fillets.
I'm dipping and doing it. They're the perfect piece of chicken because Holly Farms specially pounds them thin.
They won't curl while cooking.
All you got to do is dip them in the egg and then dip them in the breadcrumbs and then you do them.
Well, you don't have to dip them.
Well, then don't dip them, just do them. And you're done.
You're not done.
I know. America's cooking with Holly Farms Thin and Fancy Fillets.
Just dip them and do them.
And as they say at the ACC, and then you dunk them.
We're
Words in basketball have a special meaning. Like traveling doesn't mean you're visiting someone, and charging doesn't have anything to do with credit cards. For grocery shoppers, words have a special meaning too. Like extra low prices. That means Food Line. Because Food Line buys extra large quantities of groceries from manufacturers to get extra savings. And those savings mean extra low prices for you.
The game plan is brought to you by Mazda. We're at halftime, and let's check with some of the points that we brought up in the first, before we had the first half, and check some of the points that you made and see if the teams have done what you said they should do in order to be ahead.
We talked about how important transition play was to the Duke Blue Devils, and there were periods in the first half where they ran the transition to perfection. They've gotten some easy shots off their defense in creating some turnovers. So for a long period in the first half, Duke did play in transition. Allery picked up 2 fouls, but it wasn't until late in the half, so you'd have to figure Duke is safe on that end at the moment.
All right, how about Maryland? The Terps on the verge of being blown out right now. They're down by 5 at the half. Did they do the things they were supposed to do?
Maryland did get the ball inside to Lenny Bias. Bias had a great first half. We talked about how Derek Lewis or someone else had to step forward. It wasn't Lewis, but it was John Johnson. So Maryland has gotten the kind of balance from their scoring that they needed. However, the Terps have turned the ball over 10 times. That has helped Duke in the transition. You can't shoot it if you don't have it, so they've lost that many opportunities. Maryland, toward the end of the first half, got on the boards a little bit better, and the rebound stats are probably pretty close to even.
And that's the way we see the game plan at halftime, with Duke leading Maryland 39-34. The game plan is brought to you by Mazda. Mike Patrick along with Dan Bonner. We're at Cole Fieldhouse, and right now let's travel down the East Coast to Durham, North Carolina, and look at Duke.
Duke University, since its beginnings in 1838 as Union Institute, has been at the forefront of higher education in the United States. The university's graduate schools in business administration, divinity, engineering, forestry, law, medicine, and nursing rank at or near the top of their fields. The esteem accorded an undergraduate degree from Duke University is revealed when its students seek to advance to postgraduate studies. 99% of those applying to law or business schools and 75% of those seeking entrance to medical school routinely gain acceptance. However, much more than book knowledge is gained, for Duke is a hands-on research center for students and faculty. Each year, almost $50 million in scientific research is conducted in Duke laboratories. Not all of these labs are indoors. Nestled in the trees at the edge of Duke Forest lies the only university-based facility in the world devoted to the study of the anatomy, behavior, and history of the prosimian primates. A living library, the Duke University Primate Center, located on an 11-square-acre natural habitat, gives Duke students a first-hand opportunity to study, up close, members of a rare and endangered species. Their research and study hold the key to the survival of these animals. Hands-on experience is a hallmark of Duke University, from the Primate Center to the Chemistry Lab to the Medical Center to the Law and Business Schools. A teaching and learning experience that can be gained only at one of America's truly great institutions, Duke University.
39-34 at the half. Duke leading Maryland, and we ask you to stay tuned as halftime continues after this word from your local ACC station.
RALTV, this is an Action News 5 news brief.
Coming up tonight after the ball game on Action News 5, an update on that nuclear accident in Oklahoma. Another church fire, another sanctuary burns to the ground. This time the scene is Garner. We'll have a full report. North Carolina's problem with a deadly disease has worsened considerably in a year's time. We're talking about AIDS. The problem is now 3 times as bad as it was in 1984. Meanwhile, the SBI takes a look into the death of a Cumberland County nurse. Friends say she was killed. Local authorities say it was an accident. I'm Bill Leslie. Join us for details tonight after the ball game. On our next Live at Noon, the Auto Owners Fight Back book, how to watch out and not be ripped off by auto repairs, and Denise will have a letter from the Medical Beat mailbag. Join us.
Thanks to government deregulation, banks can now pay whatever they please on CDs. Now that can be good news or bad news, depending on your banker. At First Federal, it's good news. We're paying special bonus rates on CDs because we're throwing out the old rules and regulations. What's your bank doing?
Call First Federal for the hottest new CD rates in town.
The best are here together, growing strong, the place to be. We're right where we belong, the CBS place to be. Together now, we've got the touch, WRAL. TV5, we've got the touch on WRAL. TV5, CBS place to be.
Andy's back, weekdays at 5:30.
For your convenience, concession stands are open in the four corners of the building. They're selling popcorn, nacho chips, hot dogs, Cokes, candy, and ice cream.
The scoreboard is brought to you by Budweiser. Let's run down some of the early action from today. A couple of great games in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Got Georgetown, the final over Providence, 110-79. The Hoyas had been beaten twice in a row and came back for a Big East win. Kansas knocked off by Memphis State in overtime. Kansas has lost a couple in the last 2 weeks. Brigham Young, a winner over New Mexico, 60-57. That is also a final. North Carolina State really gave North Carolina a run for its money. That score really not indicative of how close that ball game was. But Carolina just so tough, even without the injured Warren Martin, they came back to win. But Jim Valvano and company will be heard from before this one is over. And Penn State, a 30-point loser to St. Joe's.
For you tennis players, don't put away...
Pro football, Miami escaped. They were down 21-3, came back to win at 24-21. But the Dallas Cowboys did not escape in what, at least the first half, one of the most horrid offensive shows I've seen in a long time. They lose to the Rams 20-0 as Eric Dickerson had a big day. Let's talk about the NFL first with Rudy Martzke, who's been nice enough to join us, the columnist from USA Today. Pro football this year, it's been a little strange. There seems to be the Chicago Bears and then a huge drop-off to everybody else.
I think that's a reason why some of those games didn't sell out. That there's only one super team this year, and that now we're getting to a point where maybe we're questioning a little bit whether the Bears are that super because they haven't played. Tomorrow they get their chance. But, you know, talking to Bob Trumpy down at the Orange Bowl, and he said that he thinks that's a reason, and I think I agree with him, that 3 of those 4 games did not sell out before the blackout deadline because only the Bears in the cold weather cities sold out. The warm weather cities did not. The 80-degree cities, had a lot of tickets to go.
Is there too much basketball on TV anymore? I know junkies love it, and I love to watch college basketball, but it seems you could see virtually every college basketball game there is if you have cable or a satellite dish.
Well, it's a sport that already, you could say that there's too many games, but the network ratings at this stage are up big from a year ago. So I think what we had is, just like we had in college football a year earlier, that we had a shakedown, and we had a drop-off in the ratings, but now, as you know, CBS came back big in football this year. And I think as long as you have a good game on, people will watch. And hey, I watched 2 games this afternoon that Jefferson Pilot Raycom put on. And this one tonight is a good one. So, as long as there's a good game, people will watch, and I think sponsors will buy the product.
It's tough to miss in this league to have a good game, considering 7 of the 8 teams might get to the NCAA playoffs. But nationwide, I think maybe the fans are becoming a little bit more sophisticated. They will not just watch anything that happens to be on. It has to be a pretty decent attraction.
Right. That's why the ACC and the Big East and maybe the Big Ten can draw. Syracuse pulled off 2 top recruits from Los Angeles just off ESPN or, just off good cable telecasts.
Who do you like this year as a conference? The Big East had its moment last year with 3 of the 4 teams in the NCAA Final Four. What's your pick for conferences this year?
I would go along easily with the fact that the ACC, it's going to be their year.
But, you know, I think Carolina is the only team, maybe Georgia Tech. I don't see this Duke team doing it. But I see Carolina being a team in the Final Four and maybe one other ACC team, possibly Georgia Tech, because Bobby Trent is a great coach.
He sure is. Rudy, thanks very much for being with us. Really enjoyed it.
Okay, Mike.
We're at halftime at College Park, and Duke is leading Maryland 39-34. We'll be back with more after this word from Budweiser.
Somehow you always come through. You keep it going. Your pride's really showing. Nobody shines like you. Yeah, you make America work, and this bud's for you.
Here's to you, Beechwood Age, for that clean, crisp taste that says Budweiser.
This bud's for you.
Welcome to the financial supermarket.
Squeeze these software stocks. They're solid. Your future lies in pork bellies.
In this world of confusing financial options, you don't have a chance if you don't have a plan. And that's where a Jefferson Standard agent can help with insurance and other financial services, plus the knowledge to put together a plan that makes sense. Financial services from Jefferson Standard. Our business is your future.
Wolfpack, Tigers, Tar Heels, Cavaliers, Blue Devils, Deacons, Yellow Jackets, Terrapins. If you know the ACC, then you know who I'm talking about. Words like these describe the spirit of the teams. If you know grocery shopping, you know that extra low prices means Food Line. Extra also describes the spirit of friendliness of the Food Line team. Visit one of our stores soon and get in on the savings team.
Hey, Tom, catch.
When you're between stock trades, we shift your money into a money market account where you'll earn a good rate. Now, on your IRA, did you want to go fixed rate CD or with the stocks? And we can give you a line of credit up to $50,000. So what do you think about that, Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith?
More muscle for your money from NCNB, working to be the best bank in the neighborhood.
This Raycom Sports Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions exclusive is being brought to you by Budweiser, NCNB, Piedmont Airlines, the Jefferson Pilot Companies, South Carolina National, Mazda, Food Lion, and Central Fidelity.
At the conclusion of this game, we'll be selecting an outstanding player from each team as the Holly Farms Player of the Game. Holly Farms will contribute $1,000 to the Atlantic Coast Conference to be distributed to the institutions under a conference-approved plan in the names of these two players. At the end of the season, each player winning the Player of the Game award will receive a plaque from Holly Farms recognizing this honor. Set to go with the second half. Here are the halftime stats. And the field goal percentage favors Maryland. Free throw percentage very good by both teams. Rebounds a big difference. Turnovers not that much.
It's not that big a difference in turnovers, Mike, but Duke has been able to convert their turnovers. Every turnover Maryland has, Duke converts into a transition opportunity.
Maryland goes with its original starting lineup. Gatlin and Johnson in the backcourt. Dawkins reached in and knocked the ball away. And they said Johnson was the last man to touch it. It'll go over to Duke.
Tough break for Johnson. Dawkins did get his hand on the ball, but Johnson thought he could reach it before it went out of bounds, and he did touch it.
Amaker picked up by Gatlin. 39-34. The margin is 5. We have played 15 seconds of the second half. In the lane, Henderson with a double pump over Bias, who just stood his ground.
Good defense by Maryland. Henderson had 14 points in the first half, so he was a big factor for Duke.
Gatlin working man-on-man on Amaker, and he's got a big advantage there, Dave.
He sure does. He's about 5 or 6 inches taller than Amaker and used it well that time.
Henderson quickly down court, and Bias tried to get in his way, but couldn't. 41-36. 16 points for David Henderson, the senior from Drury, North Carolina. Once again, they isolate Gatlin over there on the right side.
Amaker did a nice job, though, forcing him to keep his dribble away from the basket.
They try the alley-oop. Ferry came across to knock it away, and here comes Dawkins on the break. Amaker, the good shooter.
What a great stop by Johnny Dawkins in traffic. That takes a lot of athletic ability to stop as solidly as he did, but that stop created the pass and the opportunity for Amaker.
Dawkins, a consensus All-American, plays every phase of the game. Here's Gatlin isolated on Amaker again. He wants that side clear so he can back in on him. He's got a big height advantage. Missed the shot this time, though. Ferry with a rebound. Bad pass, and Bias picked it off. Lenny Bias, 15-footer. He's short. Slapped out.
It's got to be on Henderson.
And it is.
David Henderson really did take a whack at that ball and slap it out.
2 on Henderson.
Even if he didn't get anybody, it sure looked like he cleaned out the whole stack in there.
Well, they called it on Allery instead.
They did.
Unless the public address announcer was wrong, because the official was obviously pointing at Henderson, but nobody on the Duke bench up and complaining, so that's 3 on Allery. That would be a big turnaround. Here's Johnson, offensive foul, and Danny Ferry standing still at the baseline, and no basket.
That's a good call. I'm sure the contact came before he released the ball. Another good defensive play by Danny Ferry. Johnson doing a nice job getting around Dawkins. You can clearly see Ferry is there. He's got both feet planted. He's facing Johnson. Johnson charges into him and then shoots the ball.
Approaching the 18-minute mark of the ball game, it's 43-36, Duke by 7. Dawkins penetrates. Oh, what a play.
What a first step Dawkins has.
Once again, Duke gets some breathing room. Johnny Dawkins with 12, and the Blue Devils have a 9-point lead. They are undefeated and ranked 3rd in the nation. Bias, double team, has it knocked away again, goes back and gets it. Len Bias just trying to do it all himself. The basket will not count, but we've got a foul on Ferry.
That's something Len Bias really shouldn't try to do, Mike. If that's on Ferry, and it is, that's 3 fouls on Danny Ferry.
Foul number 35 for the Blue Devils.
Bias certainly draws a crowd whenever he gets the ball for Maryland, and it's tough for him, particularly when he has to dribble it, because for every dribble that he makes, he's got to figure that another Duke defender is coming his way.
Massenberg with a jump shot won't go. Lewis got away with a push-off, got the rebound and scored.
You can see there Mark Allery is extremely upset about that. Lewis just pushed him off. A big bucket for Maryland.
Allery and Ferry each have 3 personal fouls. The Terps back within 7 points with 17:22 to go. Lewis went with the steal, and Allery with the open jump shot.
It's a bad decision by Derek Lewis. He shouldn't be trying to steal the ball out there.
Gatlin guarded by Amaker. The lead once again is 9. Somebody needs to come to him, and they didn't. And here's Dawkins with that steal and that great speed.
Great defense by Duke.
John Johnson in the backcourt. The spread has reached 11. Derek Lewis, the power forward, trying to get out in the lane, tried to dish it off, and Allery got a hand out there and knocked it away.
Maryland's really going to have a tough time if Derek Lewis is going to be the one handling the ball from the half-court line into the foul line area.
Baxter is back in the ball game as Gatlin will get a breather. Go over and talk to Lefty Drizel.
Lefty's talking to Gatlin over there. He seems upset a little bit with the performance that Gatlin has just put on. Looked like Maryland was trying to isolate Gatlin underneath against Amaker, and they were only partially successful.
Terps have turned the ball over 4 times in this half. Duke, not at all. Henderson got a hand on that last one, and he and Bias are going at each other. Bias gets the ball off a good screen from Massenberg. He goes all the way across the lane, leans into one, didn't get the roll. The tip by Lewis, no, and the foul will be on
David Henderson. Of course, we keep accusing Henderson of committing these fouls, and it's always on somebody else, but I think we're right this time.
They may call on him this time.
Watch how many people. There's Ferry. Now here comes Allery. Bias draws a great big crowd. Lewis misses the tough shot. Now Henderson gets the foul because he backs in right there.
Allery's going to come out of the ball game. Billy King, 55, will check in. Maryland's had a lot of possessions in the last 35 seconds, but no points. Lewis really skied to get the loose ball and kicks it back outside to Johnson. Johnson had an impressive first half. Duke 49, Maryland 38. Terrapins need some offense from somebody besides Len Bias and John Johnson. This is Johnson blocked by Dawkins. The outlet pass to Amaker. And he'll pop it from 17 and get it.
Another turnover by the Terrapins, converted into another basket on transition for Duke. If Maryland could just stop turning the ball over, Mike, I think they'd be in pretty good shape.
6 points for Amaker and a 13-point lead for the Blue Devils. 51-38. Duke over Maryland with 15:53 left to go.
If all you want from a small truck is a bed in the back, then you're not ready for this one. This guy actually handles, and I never thought I'd say that about a truck.
Introducing Mazda's new B2000 SE5. With radial tires, Spoker wheels, sporty stripes and mirrors, rear step bumper, a 5-speed and a double-wall bed, all standard and all at a price close to Toyota's and Nissan's base trucks.
Are you ready for something this special? You should be.
Be in the middle of the ACC tournament this year. Holly Farms has reserved 4 seats for you. Win the Holly Farms ACC sweepstakes and enjoy free transportation to and from Greensboro, luxury accommodations at the Holiday Inn Four Seasons, fine dining, plus a chauffeured limousine. Look for details on entry blanks available only at Holly Farms displays. Featuring time trimmer boneless fresh chicken and Holly Farms Sunday Best Roaster. Don't miss the excitement. Enter today.
You're Melanie Sherwood, the famous actress.
I loved your last picture, Miss Sherwood. You ought to win an award.
No, 76 Gasoline should win the award. Well, our gasoline? For outstanding performance in the category of cleaning carburetors.
Well, it is good.
Good? It's superb, dear boy. It helped my car run smoother, idle better.
Well, I guess it should get an award.
And I accept. On behalf of 76 Gasoline, I'd like to thank everyone. Fill her up with spirit. My station attendant and all the little people. The spirit of 76.
There are few teams that can be considered great teams unless they play great defense, and you got a chance to see some great defense by Duke there. The block by Johnny Dawkins. Now watch Tommy Amaker looking all over the court, sees what's available. Nice stop for that jump shot. When Maryland turns it over, and here they do it again, Duke's in good shape.
Steal by King on Speedy Jones, and it's an offensive foul on King after a great defensive play. Speedy Jones gets the turnover to go the other way.
Had 2 great defensive plays. King did a nice job stealing the ball coming in bounds, but Speedy Jones didn't hang his head and give up. He went right after King and drew the charge. Nice play by Jones.
51-38. Duke has not turned it over at all. Maryland has turned it over 5 times, and they can't continue to do it and have a chance to come back. Bias way outside.
Bias has got to be in closer than that.
This is Baxter, short to get his own rebound, hustling after.
Bias had matched up against Amaker on the inside that time, and Baxter just didn't see it.
Set up the offense again. Baxter running the ball club along with Speedy Jones in the backcourt. There's a whistle and a foul.
It's on Derek Lewis.
Lewis called for pushing off underneath.
Maryland had much better movement on offense on that particular occasion. Lefty Drizel isn't very happy about the result, but they created some mismatches inside. We mentioned Baxter missed Bias matched up against Amaker. Lewis was battling for position against Johnny Dawkins, but Dawkins won that battle.
It's only the second team foul against Maryland. Duke has committed 4. Dawkins with a loose ball. Baxter chasing it.
Good catch by Dawkins to control that ball.
Henderson. Oh, what a pretty drive. Henderson with 18 points.
He certainly comes through in the big games, Mike.
His scoring average is only 13.3, Dan, but when you're playing somebody that the rest of your teammates can handle, he doesn't seem to do anything. You're right. In the big games, he gets a lot.
What did he have, 30 against Kansas in the NIT?
46 points in 2 games. Henderson on the jam. He has 20, and it's 55-38. Maryland down by 17. That is the biggest lead of the ball game for the Blue Devils.
Turnovers, bad shots. Duke's just taking advantage of it.
Baxter working on Amaker. He'll go to the baseline. The shot won't count. The foul will be on Amaker.
Gatlin coming back in the game. Maryland working hard to get the ball inside to Bias, but you can see David Henderson anticipates that pass perfectly down for the slam dunk.
Duke has scored 10 straight points to go up by 17, 55-38.
On that last replay, Mike, you saw Lenny Bias have pretty good position, but the feed was bad. It was thrown to the side where Henderson was standing.
Bias turnaround jumper won't go. The foul, I believe, is going to be on Billy King. It'll be his second in a hurry.
Get a look at Len Bias there. He worked so hard inside for the basketball. King right on him. Second foul on Billy King, but again, fresh people keep running right at Lenny Bias. And the problem that Bias faces, even though he may get good position inside, somebody has to throw him the ball. Duke puts such great pressure on the outside that it's difficult to find Bias when he's open.
Bias with 13 points, 5 out of 5 from the line tonight. He's been shut down really since early in the ballgame when he had the hot hand.
That's right, he had 9 points right out of the gate. He had 13 at halftime. He played 6 minutes in the second half. He's still stuck on 13.
They get 14 now, and it's 55-39. 14:07 to go in the ballgame. Dawkins, nice dish off. King, reverse layup.
Maryland went to a press that time to see if they couldn't create some easy opportunities for themselves. Duke just showing great reaction to the press.
Johnson to Bias. Nice fake to get by King. Picked up by 2 other players. Scores anyhow.
Bias got
very intense. King was ahead of the pack. Couldn't get him the ball. Now Dawkins and passing up those outside shots tonight. King with a great pass to Phillips. What a block by Lewis. Dawkins double clutch won't go. Another follow won't go. Allery is fouled. Well, Lewis finally showed you some of his shot blocking abilities. He is a great shot blocker.
Duke gets a lot of opportunities because once that first shot comes down and Maryland doesn't get it, great block by Lewis. Now Duke's just after the loose balls. Everybody's jumping up to block the shots. Nobody's really in position for rebounding. Allery happened to be in the right place at the right time.
29th block shot in 12 games for Lewis. Allery at the free throw line, 2 for 2 tonight. In and out on this one. It's 57-41, a 16-point margin. And if Maryland is going to make a run, Dan, they need to start pretty soon.
The tough thing about making a run against a team like Duke is Duke has such good quickness, it's awfully hard to press them.
12 points for Allery. Here's King went after the loose ball. Allery averaging 15 and a half. 7th rebound.
We are experiencing network technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Lost our monitors down here, and we haven't been able to hear each other anyhow, so if it doesn't sound like... Oh, now we're told we also had a power failure, so things have really been going well.
Unfortunately for the Maryland Terrapins, Mike, they've had a power failure in the second half.
You're right.
That foul was against Billy King. That's his 3rd foul. Duke threw a little bit of a different wrinkle at Maryland that time. They were in a zone defense. They were trying to execute some traps, and I think they had Maryland on the ropes, except that King committed that foul.
57-41, the margin 16 with 13-12 to go. Johnson goes to the line. 11 points for the freshman from Knoxville, Tennessee.
11 was his total at halftime, Mike, so Duke has done a nice job keeping him out of the flow of the offense in the second half.
He's only taken a couple of shots we've been in position to. It's that free throw, 57-43. It's cut to 14, and here's the pressure again. Amaker easily beating it. Billis ahead of the pack, and Dawkins will get not an offensive foul. It's going to be a block, and I thought for sure Baxter had him that time.
That's always a tough call to make, Mike. I wasn't too sure watching it as it occurred, but that's the part of the difficulty of pressing the Duke Blue Devils. They have Allery take the ball inbounds. You get it inbounds to Henderson. He makes a great pass to Amaker, and now you have Amaker and Dawkins against you 2-on-1.
Henderson, long-range jumper won't go. Lewis, another rebound ahead to Gatlin. One of the few times Maryland's had a chance to run. Bias will lay it up. Offensive foul, Lenny Bias. The vagaries of this game, one call goes your way at one end and against you on the other end.
Lefty Drizel's pondering those vagaries right now, Mike.
Henderson, bad pass. Allery trying to save it. Does, but it's picked off by Baxter. Baxter inside to Bias.
Now that's the two-shot foul. That's got to be it.
That is a two-shot foul. You got it.
Now, one of the disadvantages having your big guys in the backcourt like that is they sometimes throw the ball away. Henderson, I think, went over and was going to belt Bias and thought better of it at the last minute. That's the correct call on that, but I actually think this view you just saw, he was trying to catch Bias on the way down.
Ruled intentional with two-shot foul. The basket was also good.
We understand we have had a power failure along with some other trouble, and if you are back with us, we welcome you back to College Park.
I mean, I have to tell my power failure joke again?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I can't.
Well, we'll get it in sometime. 12:50 to go in the ballgame. 57-45. Dan, this is the second time in this ballgame that Duke was on the verge of, say, hitting a 20-point lead and being able to pull away from there. And each time, Maryland has found a way to come back.
Maryland has come back every time they stop turning the ball over. When they stop turning the ball over, create some turnovers themselves, they've been able to get back in the basketball game. Duke shooting 8 of 12 in the second half because they've been getting such great shots. Maryland that time creating the turnover. Now Bias will have a chance to cut it to 10.
Wednesday night, we hope you'll be with us from Atlanta. Wake Forest against Georgia Tech at 8 o'clock. Georgia Tech needed a tremendous finish to beat Virginia today. And this is the situation at Cole Fieldhouse with 12:50 left in the second half and Duke by 12.
As you say, Mike, Duke has simply not been able to put the Maryland Terrapins away. Maryland has had a gutty effort. Each time they get down, they scramble back. The problem is they get a little further down each time, so when they come back,
that's right,
they're still down. They're down 12 now, and we're saying they've gotten themselves back into the game.
Plenty of time left, 12:50 to go. Maryland comes in 9-2. Duke comes in undefeated, and they've beaten some pretty good clubs, Dan, to get that way. That Big Apple NIT tournament had a lot of fine ball clubs in it.
I thought their win against Kansas was especially impressive. Kansas has some great athletes. They're huge on the inside, and Duke starting the lineup they started tonight. Very smallish on the inside, but utilized all their skills, their quickness, their ball handling ability, their great outside shooting, and just dominated the game when they needed to. Henderson with 30 points. Great win for the Blue Devils.
Len Bias will go to the line. He's 6 of 7 so far, trying to win back-to-back scoring titles in the ACC. It's the free throw. 57-46. He could cut it to 10 with one more. Baxter and Gatlin now in at the guards. Johnson is also in there, so Lefty Drizel going with a 3-guard offense. Trying to get the quickness he's going to need to press on defense. Bias hits again. Jay Billis with the basketball. He and Allery in the backcourt, and they want the guards back there. They finally get Dawkins.
That's better pressure in the press defense.
They just beat the 10-second count. Amaker calls out the play.
Maryland's got to really dig down and give it some aggressive, intense man-to-man defense.
Billis clobbered underneath, a late whistle, and the foul is going to be on Len Bias, who will go to Paul Hausman and plead his case. Lenny Wirtz blew that whistle a little late on the contact underneath.
Unfortunately, Paul Hausman isn't the appeals court in this matter.
That's right.
Good catch by Jay Billis inside. Len Bias gets off his feet.
Oh, yeah.
Now, of course, no player ever commits a foul, I don't think. I know when I played, I never committed one.
That is 3 on Len Bias, the 16th foul against Maryland.
I think Bias is trying to tell Tom Frame that he had his position and Billis jumped into him.
2 shots.
Jay Billis at the line, where he is a 62.5% free throw shooter.
Now, he was better than that last year. He was up pretty close to 70% last year.
Second one is good, and the lead is now at 11, and Danny Ferry will come back in the ballgame, and Billis will come out. Remember, he has suffered with very painful tendonitis throughout his career at Duke.
It's really tough to play with a sore knee.
tough to play with a sore anything, but when you've got a bad knee, it just makes it virtually impossible to play a game that involves jumping so much.
Henderson appeared to me like he was looking for Dawkins to come in double team.
Johnson tries a tough shot inside, and Danny Ferry played good defense against him and then got the rebound. Got a whacking and chops for his trouble, too. Henderson drives at the other end and scores.
Derek Lewis took his eyes off Henderson. He was worried about Allery inside, actually turned his back to Henderson, who got an easy layup.
Next thing he felt was the breeze. 11:50 to go. The spread back to 13 at 60 to 47. John Johnson wants to get it into Bias. Somebody needs to come to his aid again, and Gatlin does.
It's just hard to get an offensive flow against defense like that.
Bias hits the side of the backboard with an ill-advised effort there.
Duke is really fun to watch on defense. They just play, they get down in good defensive position, and they just go right belly up with you.
Mike Krzyzewski not only likes the ball club, he likes his kids. Amaker's jumper is good. Tough shot by Tommy Amaker.
And talking about Maryland coming back in the face of Duke runs, Duke really hasn't let Maryland that close back in the game. Every time Maryland threatens, Duke pulls away.
The spread once again is 15. This is Baxter, Allery, and Bias leaning on each other, and they want to isolate him over there.
Everybody but Mike Krzyzewski has guarded Bias tonight.
Baxter with a tough shot, in and out. Nice rebound by Bias in the lane, and Len Bias with a foul shot. 22 for Lenny Bias.
It's one of the few times Bias has been able to dribble the ball inside without being besieged by Duke defenders.
Dawkins and Amaker, the backcourt combination with 10 minutes and 29 seconds on a turning clock from College Park. Ferry, an excellent passer, the freshman from DeMatha High School. Dawkins, baseline drive, another block on Baxter. And Baxter pops up to his feet. He didn't like that one at all. Very quick on defense. You got to beat it, even stay in the vicinity of Johnny Dawkins.
Just about to say, Mike, what Maryland has to do is going to be very difficult for them to do. They've got to put a lot of pressure on the Duke guards. Baxter does not have position established. That's a good play. But you'll notice that Maryland guards, not so much Baxter, but particularly Gatlin, they've got to play very far off Amaker and Dawkins, and you can't put a lot of pressure on somebody playing 5-6 feet off of them.
Dawkins with 14 points is closing in on number 4 all time. That position held by Art Heyman. It doesn't look like he's going to get it tonight, but very soon. And then Mike Jaminski is the number 1 man with 2,323 points. Dawkins came into this game with 1952. Hits another. What a touch.
That's 16 for Dawkins, Mike, and that's actually down from what he usually does in this building.
Timeout with 10:21 left. The lead is 15, and we'll be back in College Park after this word from Budweiser.
This Bud's for all that you do.
Carlos, I need 100 of these by Friday.
My friend, I'm retired. My son is running the business now.
Oh. You know just where you're going. It's true, your pride is showing, cause you make America work, and this Bud's for you.
Here's to you, Beechwood Age, for that clean, crisp taste that says Budweiser.
This Bud's for you.
Right now, Piedmont Airlines has a special deal just for families. When one adult flies at the regular fare, the rest of the gang, including kids under 18, can fly for as little as this. The one who just discovered boys goes at this low price, and the one who recently peanut buttered the cat, same story. There are some restrictions, so call for details. Of course, now you might want to leave the one who's still trying to find himself at home.
There's nothing like the feeling of reaching for the top, and there's nothing like the feeling of the Good News disposable razor. Light, easy to handle, twin blades. It's a feeling you only get from Gillette. Good news from Gillette.
Remember, stay tuned at the end of the game. We'll be picking a Holly Farms player of the game from each school. 64-49. The lead is 15 for Duke.
Get a chance to see Lenny Bias. As we said, Duke has guarded him with everybody out on the court tonight. Here he's trying to set up against Mark Allery. That's the kind of pressure that Bias has had to deal with all night long.
That's Tuesday, 8 p.m.
That's what happens when you're an All-American, isn't it?
Good rebound by Bias. Salary actually didn't block him out. Bias was able to get loose inside for one of the few times.
Bias came into the game hitting 52.2% of his field goals. A little under that average right now, but he does tend to draw a lot of attention.
It's been in the face of tremendous defensive pressure. Duke has switched off every time he cuts through the lane.
Try to get him again. Lost the ball. Oh, that credit ought to go to Allery, who whooshed back through the lane and tipped it.
Allery made a nice play. Maryland was fortunate they didn't give up another layup. That foul is going to be against Derek Lewis.
Foul number 33 for Maryland, Derek Lewis, his third.
It's going to be his third personal foul. Maryland has committed 14 turnovers in the ball game, something Dan Bonner pointed out at the start of the game that they would not be able to do and stay in it.
David Henderson.
And Duke has taken advantage of those turnovers.
Duke really has converted those turnovers into some easy opportunities. That's why Duke's field goal percentage is way up in the second half. They've been taking easy shots.
Henderson 1 out of 2 from the line, but he has 23 points on the night. Maryland needs baskets, and they need them in a hurry. Baxter is back in for Gatlin at the point guard.
They've got to get good shots to get the baskets, though, Mike.
Lewis screening.
Lewis screened and then stood there. He's got to roll to the basket. Look at it. Look at Dawkins. He's all over Johnson.
Get it to Speedy Jones. He's in the forward spot. Jones can do something on offense if they'll let him. Missed the shot, followed, got his own rebound, tries to follow again and scores.
Nice job.
Jones, a very solid ball player.
He sure is. Nice play to get his own rebound.
65-51. The margin 14. Time becoming a factor. We're down to 9 minutes and 8 seconds. Allery, Ferry, Amaker, Dawkins, and Henderson, the lineup for Mike Krzyzewski right now. Allery wants the ball and gets it.
Looked like he was ready to pull the trigger, but saw Derek Lewis.
Henderson will pull it in anybody's face.
David Henderson.
He's had a great game tonight.
Well, he got 25 points out of 67 for the Blue Devils.
I think he wants to stay a starter, Mike.
I don't think anybody's going to take him out. Henderson with a steal there, but Maryland got it back. Baxter drops it off. Johnson trying to penetrate. Bias follow. He just does everything.
It's one of the few times he's been that open inside. Somebody just forgot to block him out.
24 for Len Bias. 67-53. Allery loose and a great pass from Henderson.
Allery was loose because Danny Ferry and Len Bias and Speedy Jones all got tangled up inside.
This was Lewis, who should not have the ball out there and almost tossed it away. Baxter got it after it glanced off of Amaker's line.
Takes Maryland 15, 20 seconds to get in position where they can score.
Baxter's jumper wanted the foul on top of it, didn't get it, but Baxter with 4 points, and it's back to 14 again at 69-55.
Now you contrast what Duke is able to do. They're sort of able to get it down, get it in offensive position without too much effort.
They've got Dawkins down low, posting up on Baxter. They'd like to get him the ball low, and they get it to Allery. Nice pass.
Good work inside by Mark Allery.
16 for Mark Allery, the senior from Scottsdale, Arizona. He's working on the number 10 all-time scoring spot for the Blue Devils. 71-55. Bias let the ball go right through his hands. That time Henderson ahead to Dawkins. What control by Johnny Dawkins.
I didn't think, first of all, he was going to be able to catch up to it, but he ran it down. And then it was a tough catch, but he grabbed it and was able to control himself well enough to score. We've got an 18-point game all of a sudden.
This may not be one of the great scoring games that Johnny Dawkins has ever had, but he has played a superb all-around game. He's shown great judgment on shot selection and everything else. Johnson hits the bucket and gets the foul. Toughest shot by Johnson.
Johnson got hit on the head for his efforts. Duke's in his zone this time. Johnson recognizes an opening, goes to the basket, is fouled by David Henderson. It's funny sometimes, Mike, a team that plays man-to-man defense as well as Duke does, lots of time when the coach says, okay, guys, we're going to go to his zone, they feel like it's a rest period.
That's right.
And so Johnson is able to get an easy shot like that.
Shooting one, John
Johnson's hit 3 out of 4 from the line tonight. A three-point play for John Johnson, the Maryland freshman, and there's a timeout with the score. Duke 73, Maryland 58.
Appropriate traffic directional signs and instructions.
If you think spending a ton of bucks is the only way to get into a refined road car these days, then you sure don't know about this one. Because once you get to know how special Mazda's new 626 is, you'll be asking, why do the other guys cost so much?
Mazda's new 626 Sport sedan is here with a more responsive fuel-injected engine and refined aerodynamics. Enjoy a high-performance road car without paying the price.
It all makes sense to me.
Everyone is worried about rising medical costs. But at Pilot Life, we're doing something about them. We've developed a practical cost containment program that monitors and evaluates charges, encourages second opinions and outpatient treatment, and counsels good health maintenance. It's helping employers make significant savings without sacrificing the quality of treatment. At Pilot, we're making it less costly to get well with good, sound thinking that works.
Tonight's exclusive coverage is a presentation of Raycom Sports and Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions.
(73-58), Duke leading Maryland by 15. Ask you to be with us next Saturday on most of these same stations for the ACC Sports Center. Paul Cameron will be at Cameron Indoor Stadium. And coming up after that, we'll have another triple header. North Carolina State going against these same Duke Blue Devils. Virginia against Clemson. Then Maryland, Georgia Tech. From Atlanta.
Mike, we said Duke's field goal percentage should go up a little bit in the second half. They're 15 and 19. That's 78%.
That's enough. Billis back into the ball game, as is Billy King. He and Ferry working up front.
Maryland's only 9 of 22, so it's not surprising just from that stat why the game has turned into the rout that it has.
Henderson has made some tough shots. Other than that, I think Duke has gotten very high percentage shots. This is Danny Ferry. Followed by Billis, leaned into it, got the bucket and drew the foul. And that is the strength of Jay Billis' game. He is just very strong inside.
You get a look there at Tony Massenberg. He committed the foul. He's a freshman. He is not very strong. A couple of years from now with a weight program, a guy the size of Jay Billis probably won't be able to pick him up and that easily carry him to the basket.
Going to be an excellent offensive player, has all the tools. 75-58, the margin is 17. Duke's biggest lead has been 18 in this ballgame. Billis short on the free throw. The rebound to Tom Speedy Jones. 75-58, and some of the faithful are beginning to filter out of Cole Fieldhouse with 5:56 to go in the game. Johnson to Jones, almost lost it. Back to Gatlin.
Duke is back to the man-to-man. King's in the game. He's guarding Bias now.
So is Billis, and Bias makes the jump shot anyhow. Billis to tell who's guarding him, because when he gets the ball, everybody collapses. 26 points for Lenny Bias.
In the first half, John Johnson had 11 points and helped Bias carry the load, but in the second half, nobody's really been of any assistance for Len Bias.
Not at all. King to Amaker. Backdoor cut. Amaker lost it.
I want to know how he can see that out of half court.
The official, who was about 20 feet away from the spot, called it out of bounds. Lenny Wertz, who was standing on top of the plate, never even blew his whistle.
And Lenny's closer to the floor, too.
Yes, he is. Oh, don't say things like that, so am I. Us guys under 6'7" have to stick together. Gatlin being dogged. And the pass inside. King will be called for a foul as he went after Bias to try to get the steal.
Again, Gatlin's having a difficult time finding Lenny Bias to pass it into him because he's just worried about hanging on to the basketball.
King talking to Mike Krzyzewski. Going to get Baxter back in the ballgame as Bias goes to the line. Bias with 26. Just turns in one great game after another.
Unfortunately, in the ACC, Mike, you got to have more than one horse.
Well, he's got 26 points, missed that free throw. 26 points will not win ball games, not if the other 4 members of your team only have 34.
That was pretty good ciphering.
That's what we called it in West Virginia. Amaker gets it to Billis. 4:40 to go. Duke like to use up a little bit of the clock and salt this one away. King.
Dawkins asking for it inside against Baxter. Baxter's all over him, trying to keep him from getting the ball.
Shot clock is down to 12 seconds. Dawkins out to Ferry. Shot clock is at 5. Ferry leans into one, and the foul will be on Massenburg. Not a good foul by Massenburg because Ferry had to put that thing up to beat the shot clock.
Absolutely right. Massenburg's a freshman, though. Those are things he'll learn. In a very quiet way, Mike, Danny Ferry has played a good basketball game tonight. This is my first opportunity to see him play in person, and I've really been impressed. He's a good, solid basketball player.
Ferry's free throw is good. He does all the fundamentals just the way you would want somebody to do coming in as a college freshman.
And the situation that he stepped into, I think, makes him even better, because he stepped into a situation where he's not called upon to carry a big offensive or defensive load because it's a veteran ball club. He's been able to blend in very well.
4 points for Ferry, who averages 7.5 points a game. More importantly, he averages 7.1 rebounds, which leads this team, and is 7th in the ACC. He has 6 boards tonight.
One thing I miss, though, I'm going to miss about Duke-Maryland matchups this year with Dan Mahar gone. It's not really that interesting with the guys guarding Bias. He and Bias used to really go after it.
Oh, didn't they ever? 77-60. Duke trying to put away yet another victory. It would be their second of the conference season. Bias, what a foul. Holy cow. That's 28 for Lenny Bias.
That ball looked suspiciously close to being in the cylinder, Mike.
Well, you go tell Bias, because I'm not going to. 3:53 left in the game. It's still Duke by 15. They tried to get it to Billis. Nice play by Derek Lewis to tip it away inside. And Gatlin gets it to Baxter after it missed one other player. Lewis trying to work into the lane. He's fouled. Tommy Amaker reached in and slapped at him.
Some teams you see, Mike, they play very well in transition offensively. They're able to get down the court very quickly for fast break opportunities.
Bobby Ross, the Maryland head football coach, who has done such a wonderful job and won the Cherry Bowl game this year. Beat the Orange Men of Syracuse up in Pontiac, Michigan.
Troy put some excitement into the Maryland football program.
Well, he did that. What I was a lot of people disappointed with the year they had this year. It's a little tough to be disappointed with 8-3 regular season and then a bowl victory.
Set up 4 now.
5 points for Lewis.
As Rodney Dangerfield would say, tough crowd.
Free throw won't go this time. 77-63. The margin is 14.
Baxter, Jeff Baxter, you see here matched up against Johnny Dawkins, has just been working his tail off tonight trying to guard Dawkins. The fact that Maryland hasn't been successful certainly isn't due to any lack of effort on Baxter's part. He's played hard.
Well, if you don't work hard to guard Dawkins, he gets 45. Allery on Bias. Bias trying to draw the offensive foul, and he did this time.
Lenny Bias shows you that not only can he shoot, rebound, pass, and dribble, but he's a pretty decent actor as well.
That's right.
You kidding me? Allery knocks him down that easily?
Yeah, Len Bias is a little stronger than this.
Allery catches the ball inside, but Bias does a nice job to get down and cut off the baseline. There's not very much contact there, but good defensive play.
He cut off the baseline by falling on it. There's a timeout with a score. Duke over Maryland by 14. Back after this word from Budweiser.
This Bud's for all that you do. You keep America going. You keep the juices flowing. You are the muscle, the hope and the hustle. You keep the country growing, and you make America work, and this Bud's for you.
Here's to you, Beechwood Age, for that clean, crisp taste that says Budweiser.
This Bud's for you.
A ACC basketball on the Raycom Sports Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions Network has been brought to you in part by Mazda. 3:14 left. The margin is 14. And as you said earlier, Dan, Maryland keeps coming back, but every time they come back, they seem to fall a couple of points farther back. I didn't understand that, but if you did, just chime right in, because I still can't hear a word you say.
Maryland started the game getting down 12, and then they brought it back to within 6. Then they're down 15, and they get back to 10. Now they've gotten it back to 12 from being down 20, but they just can't seem to get over the hump. It's not a totally discouraging evening for Maryland, though. This man at the free throw line, Baxter, who just missed that one, has shown...
He tried to miss that one. I think that was on purpose. Maryland is down by 12 with 3 minutes to go. That's not a bad play either.
But Baxter's worked very hard. He's shown some flashes, particularly on defense. Bias has obviously had a great game. And John Johnson showed us in the first half that he can be a factor for Maryland.
Baxter's a senior from Washington, D.C., and I think it's important that seniors can play. Lewis with a great block. This kid can block shots with anybody. Here's Baxter, wants to go all the way and scores. It's down to 10 with 2:34 left. Don't go away yet. Amaker around Speedy Jones.
It's tough for Maryland because they just don't have the quickness to press Duke.
Duke trying to spread it out right now, work on the clock. There's 2:17 to go. And Bias was out there. There's Ferry with another behind-the-back pass. And we've got a foul that stops play with 2:14 left.
Duke is able to break through the pressure out at half court and leave Ferry all alone.
Oh, what a nice pass.
Great pass. The key thing, though, is he drew Lewis to him. He was sure that he had a commitment, and then he passed it to Allery, who was cutting toward the basket. Mark wasn't standing at the free throw line watching. He cut to the basket. Just a great play.
Allery was 16 points tonight, 2 out of 3 from the free throw line. Yeah, we saw one brilliant comeback this afternoon as Georgia Tech scored, I believe, the last 11 points against Virginia to win by 3. Now Maryland needs an even bigger comeback than that, and they'll need some help. Allery's free throw is good. 17 points for Allery. He's never been a spectacular ball player, but calling him steady has never been a compliment enough. He's just an exceptional ball player.
I really think, Mike, that he may be the key to this Duke team, and that's why I said before the game, if you can sit him on the bench in foul trouble, I think that you've gone a long way to putting some big pressure on the Blue Devils.
Baxter skies a shot over Danny Ferry. Great shot by Baxter.
And Maryland has not quit. Keith Gatlin gets a timeout. You have to admire the character of Maryland. They've had plenty of opportunities. They were down by 20 points. They can just pack it in and go home. Lefty Drizel now. He's going to continue that press that Maryland has shown. What that's going to do is force the game to be at a very quick pace. You run a gamble there. You might steal the ball, but you might create a 3-on-1 situation for the Duke Blue Devils. So Maryland's really in a bind, but they haven't quit.
Very difficult to do anything with Amaker and Dawkins in the backcourt. People, I think, tend to forget that Dawkins was a point guard. He is the all-time assist leader in Blue Devil history. Tommy Amaker is going to catch him very shortly, but that means they're already number 1 and number 2 in assists in the history of Duke basketball, and they're in the same backcourt.
And there have been some pretty fine players to come out of Duke University, so they're not chopped liver, and they're great free throw shooters as well. So you foul them, you're really in trouble.
Coming up Wednesday night from Atlanta, Wake Forest and Georgia Tech, and I believe you and I will be there for that one.
Yes, we will. Be interesting to see how Georgia Tech reacts. Had a big win today, but Wake Forest is going to be a tough game for them down in Atlanta.
Maryland has scored 9 of the last 10 points in this ball game. Our statistician Mark Madry pointing that out to us. They are down by 9 right now with 2:01 left. Duke will have the basketball.
They've dug themselves a pretty big hole, Mike. I really don't know whether they can get out of it or not, but I'm impressed at the way that they're making the effort.
Oh, we'll find out in 2 minutes and 1 second. Stick around with us, will you? Dawkins being hounded by Baxter.
Baxter's got to be exhausted.
Henderson. He's being guarded by John Johnson. As Lefty Drizel going with 3 guards. Duke does not need to score. All they need to do is run time off the clock. It's down to 1:40. Maryland is going to have to foul on purpose sooner or later.
Dawkins really handles that ball well.
Amaker working on Gatlin. Shot clock is at 10. Gatlin blocked that shot. And Duke got it back. Henderson follows. Do you believe that? An offensive foul. I do not believe the basket will count, and Bias drew the charge. That was not a play Mike Krzyzewski wanted to see Henderson make.
Gatlin did a nice job that time staying with Amaker. He stayed close enough to him that he could block the shot. Good play by Lenny Bias. He really had no other choice.
78-69. Maryland is still alive.
Good play by Bias.
That's a good call, too.
David Henderson just fouled out of the game.
Henderson with a brilliant ball game. 25 points, 6 rebounds. And the ball kicked away, picked up by Lewis. Leans into one of the lanes. 78-71. Maryland back within 7. And Lefty Driesell will use what I believe is his last timeout of the ball game. There is a timeout on the court with 1 minute and 10 seconds to go. Duke 78, Maryland 71. Back after this from Natural Light. 1:10 left, and Maryland will just not go away. The Terps are out of timeouts. They're only down by 7 now. They've been down by as many as 18.
Maryland's got to go for the steal. If they don't get the steal right away, then they've got to try to foul, I believe, Billy King or Danny Ferry. King is only a 58% free throw shooter. Ferry is 61. But you can see the difficulty. Duke is not going to throw those guys the ball unless they have to. They put it in the hands of Johnny Dawkins. He's fouled, and he's an 83% free throw shooter.
And tonight, he is a 100% free throw shooter. He's hit all 6. Maybe the odds are in your favor in that case, but Johnny Dawkins is such a clutch performer. You got to figure he hits the big shots down the stretch. Dawkins with 18 tonight. 6 out of 6 from the line. Speedy Jones is back in as Lefty Driesell. Excuse me, goes to those situational substitutions. Just dropped it right over the front rim.
Nothing to it, huh?
No, not for him. 109 to go. The margin is 8. Even numbers become important at this point. Maryland would need 4 possessions right now to get back, and that is a big free throw. Here's Gatlin. Approaching the 1-minute mark. Maryland needs points. Gatlin's jumper won't go. Jones had a hand on it. Gatlin gets the loose ball. He's short again, and Allery comes out with it. That's the one that may have done it. 53 seconds to go, and we've got an injured player, Billy King. Somebody got him in the eye, so Lenny Wirtz. Looks like he lost a contact lens. Lenny Wirtz will stop play.
That's exactly what happened. He's got his contact lens knocked out.
I saw a great cartoon the other day. 10 basketball players down on the floor, and the coach wanted to know somebody lost a contact lens, and he said, no, an earring.
I'm always amazed at people that can get their contact lenses back in and get them on their eyes without a mirror. I can't do that. I don't understand how people are able to do that.
53 seconds left. Maryland has really hung tough here in the closing moments, made a big comeback, but they're still down by 8 with 53 seconds to go, and Duke will have the basketball.
Maryland's in a situation now where they can't really be worried about the quality of the shot they get. They've got to come down and shoot right away. That last series, Gatlin actually had a good shot. They were able to get the rebound. His second shot was under a great deal of pressure. As you say, that may have been the one that broke it for Maryland, because had that ball gone in, Maryland's right back in the game.
53 seconds left. Be with us on Wednesday night. Game time will be 8 o'clock, or at least airtime will be. Tip-off following in a couple of minutes. Wake Forest and Georgia Tech. But we are not done with business here, as Duke only leads by 8 points with 53 seconds to go. The Terps are going to have to go, as Dan said earlier, go for the steal quickly.
Maryland's got to, as we said, Maryland has to try to steal the inbounds pass. Billy King is going to throw the ball. It's going to be King or Allery throws it inbounds. King's throwing it inbounds, so you can't foul him while he's out of bounds. Then you'd like to try to foul either King or Ferry.
They got it to Allery, and Lewis thought he fouled him, but no call. Thought he fouled him again.
Now there's the guy you want to foul. Good job by Ferry to get rid of the ball immediately.
Dawkins knocks it back out to Amaker. Maryland trying to foul. Gatlin reaches around. He's not going to call it. Amaker missed the shot. Bias with a rebound.
Amaker should not be shooting the ball.
And Dawkins gets the loose ball. He and Amaker on defense, and Berry kicked the ball, rolled it out of bounds. Well, Duke has done Maryland a couple of favors right here, but there's 26 seconds to go.
They ran enough time off the clock that it doesn't really make any difference, Mike, but in that situation, Duke should not be trying to score. They don't need more points. They need the clock to run.
Johnson in the lane. Little jumper is good. 79-73. Maryland can't stop it anymore.
Duke taking their time, getting to the ball.
Getting into Dawkins, and he's fouled by Baxter. Boy, Baxter's done a nice job, Dan. You pointed that out earlier. He's really hustled on defense against one of the great one-on-one offensive players in college basketball.
And I think that's been a key to the Maryland ability to come back in the second half. It's been Lenny Bias on the offense, but it's been Baxter really key in the defensive play for Maryland that's got them back in the game.
Dawkins at the line, 7 of 8, 19 points for the consensus All-American. Hits another, and Duke reaches 80 with 14 seconds left, and that will virtually ensure the Blue Devils' 12th consecutive victory of the year. Hits it again. 81-73. Baxter may have the honor of the last Maryland shot. Drives all the way in. They let him go. And the senior from Washington, D.C. makes it 81-75. And King doesn't even need to get it in. He just holds onto the basketball. And time runs out. A valiant comeback by Maryland, but it falls short as Mike Krzyzewski leaves the court. 81-75 is the final. Duke beating Maryland. Coming up,